What up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to give you guys one of my best kept secrets, I guess you could say, and I use it to get my drums to be punchy and to cut through in the mix. You know, in hip hop and R&B, at least for most of the stuff I do, the drums are the foundation, and I want them to be solid through and through. So I was sitting here working on the beat, and I thought it would be cool just to do this tutorial right quick. So let's just jump right into it. So let's listen to the beat and see what we have already. So the drums already sound decent for the most part, but we can enhance them a little bit further and make them hit a little bit harder. The plugin we want to load up, we want to go to harmonic and go to air distortion. This little plugin is probably one of my favorite plugins in Pro Tools, and I use it for a lot of things, from drums to vocals to bass, on effects returns sometimes, sounds, everything. But let's go over what each setting does. All right. So the drive lets you increase the drive of the signal from 0 to 60. You know, that's just the amount of distortion. The output lets you lower the output level. You know, that's self-explanatory. The mix control lets you balance the amount of dry signal with the distorted signal. All right. Pre-shape. The pre-shape is essentially just a pre-distortion tone control that makes the distortion bite at different frequencies. At 0, it doesn't do anything. Higher settings provide a boost in the high end, and the lower settings suppress the high end, and it adds a little mid-range boost for a darker, less distorted tone. All right. High cut. The high cut control just basically lets you adjust the frequency for the high cut filter. All right. Now let's go to clipping. All right, the DC bias control lets you change clipping from being symmetrical to being asymmetrical, which makes it sound richer and nastier at high settings. The difference is most noticeable though when your drive settings are lower. So depending on how much drive you're pushing or how high the drive is, you won't be able to really hear the DC bias setting if it's too high. All right. Threshold. The threshold control lets you adjust the headroom for the dynamic range of the distorted signal between -20 and 0. Alright. Now let's go to the distortion modes. Hard provides a sharp, immediate distortion of the signal. Soft provides a softer, more gradual distortion of the signal. Warp wraps the waveform back on itself for a complex distortion tone that changes quickly from soft to harsh. All right, so that's an overview of all the settings that we have on this particular plugin. All right, so we have it on our snare. Let's just listen to it bypass without it. All right, now let's listen to it with it. Now that's just way too much. But let's dial down the drive a little bit. And let's take the pre-shape up. Let's add a little bit more, which is actually making it a little bit darker tone. It's going to make the distortion sound a little bit darker. So let's listen to it. That's width. Let's bypass it. If you notice, it sounds a little bit heavier and a little bit beefier. To me, what this plugin does is it makes the sounds sound a little bit more analog. I used to sequence on the MPC 3000, which is you know, a drum machine from Akai. I would drive the input to make the drums hit a little bit harder and to give them a little bit more grit. And this plugin to me does the same thing to my drums depending on how I set it. So let's just listen to it in the track, and then we'll just kind of play with the settings and adjust it until we get something we like. Bypass. All right, and what you want to be careful with is you want to make sure you're not getting fooled by the volume increase. So let's see what the volume is, or the peak volume is of this, and then let's try to match those peak volumes. That way we're not getting distracted by or getting thrown off by it just being louder. So let's see where it's at. If we look right here, we can see that it's negative 17.9. Let's enable it and see where it's hitting. Negative 15. Let's back up off it a little bit. Let's go right. Okay. So we're at negative 18, which is right around where it is as far as the peak level. So let's bypass it again and play it in the track. Now let's enable it. Now, if you notice, our peak levels are the same, but we perceive the sound to be louder with the distortion. Let's listen one more time. I'm going to bypass it, and then I'm going to enable it as it's playing. So it helps us in two ways. If you notice with the distortion, the drum just sounds more solid. It just sounds like it's a lot more beefier, which I like my drums to be beefy and I like them to cut through in the mix. And it's making us perceive it as being louder without even turning it up. You know, we didn't even adjust the volume at all. And that helps us because let's say we go, you know, we got a L2 or something on our master and we're doing some limiting. Now we don't have to turn that snare up to trigger that compression or that limiting that we're doing on our drum bus or on our master bus, and we can actually hear it without squashing it, without it sounding squashed. Because I hear it all the time in a lot of mixes, or you know, people will send beats and I'll listen to them and I can tell that they just squash the whole mix, you know, trying to get it louder. But what ends up happening is the drums, being the loudest part of the track, get squashed first, and it just makes it just kills the dynamic range of the whole beat, and it just kills the whole feel of the beat, because you want those drums to knock and hit hard. So it's just a win all the way around. So now let's try it on the kick drum. So let's just copy this particular one over to our kick and let's just see what it sounds like. Wow, it's amazing what it sounds like and how punchy that kick is just by adding a little bit of distortion to it. And you know, compression, for some reason, you know, compression is the go-to to make something punchy, and compression really for this kick would do me more harm than good, because the velocity of the kicks are already at their highest. So there's not a bunch of dynamic range stuff going on with the kick in the first place. So why do I need compression to compress the signal or to compress the dynamic range of this channel? It just doesn't make sense. And distortion, for me, this particular distortion plugin, it just does the trick. Like, I'm even using it on the 808 over here. Let's listen to it. All right, let's bypass it. So you can just hear the grit that it adds to the 808, man. This plugin right here is one of my favorite plugins to use just to get my drums to hit a lot harder. And like I said, I use it on other stuff, from vocals to effect returns, man, bass, anything really that needs a little grit. You know, Pro Tools and most of these DAWs, period, they just sound clean. It's like you have to go in there, you have to dirty up the sounds a little bit just to give it a little bit more of an analog feel, really. You know, like a lot of the boards that you know, people used to mix on, because a lot of people mix in the box now, but a lot of the boards that people used to mix on, there used to be just some analog harmonic distortion that people liked, and that's what I feel like a lot of people still chase in the box. Like, they still want that sound. Adding that distortion, it just gives you that a little bit of warmth that you're looking for in your mixes. I know I look for it in my mixes, and the mixes that I like to listen to, they possess these characteristics, you know. But anyway, look, this is just a little technique I use to get my drums to cut through and to punch a little bit harder. If this helped any of you guys out there, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Also, if you got any questions about this technique, drop a comment below and I'll definitely try to answer them to the best of my ability. Also, if you guys got any secrets or techniques that you use to get your drums to punch, I would love to hear about them. But until next time, arrivederci.